Hello, good morning, and welcome. I'm your host, Sule A. Joseph, and you're watching another episode of Psyched. By now, you know I'm a counseling psychologist by profession, and today we have a controversial topic to discuss. But before we get into all of that, of course, my favorite segment, Psyched to Know.
Psyched to Know, brought to you by Sule Joseph and Associates. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, an atheist is defined as a person who does not believe in the existence of a god or any gods. Their reasons vary from insufficient evidence and irrelevance to their lives to losing faith in a belief system and/or growing up in a non-religious environment. Minister of Finance will present the national budget for fiscal year 2023-2024 on Monday, 2nd October. What will be done to lift our economy? Which sectors will get priority? Will there be an increase in social expenditure? Join host Keaton Shah and political analyst Derek Ramsamuch on AM Prime as we dissect and analyze fiscal year 2022-2023 and examine our financial future. And join WESN for its budget panel debate from 6:30 p.m. on Monday, 2nd October, where we engage in constructive conversations with the people that matter. The #1 morning show, AM Prime, Mondays to Fridays, 6 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Welcome back to the viewers at home. I promised you a controversial topic today. When I was a child, there were some beliefs that were permanently affixed to my brain. And I'm sure that holds true to you all at home as well. There are some things that are incontroversial. There are some things that are rudimentary to our basic existence, our beliefs that form us, that shape us, and that cause us to be who we are, cause us to function the way we function and not do some things or do some things. What am I talking about? What beliefs? Well, I went to what we'd call a denominational secondary school, and there I met a very interesting gentleman who's chosen to join me today, a colleague and friend, Andre Stewart. Andre.
How are you doing, sir?
Thank you for being here.
Same.
All right. Today we're going to have a conversation about God.
Amen.
We're going to have a conversation about God. Now, I am no pastor, and I don't claim to be the most religiously educated person, but I am aware, as a psychologist, that some of us need to believe in a higher power. But what about those persons who choose not to? Well, Andre is joining me here today for us to have said conversation. A conversation about those persons who choose not to believe. Now, Andre, before we get into that, let's for the persons at home, let's have a running definition for an atheist. Because, theism is the belief in a higher power, a creator, right? And when we say monotheism, we talk about believing in one God. And polytheism is believing in many. So theism is the word theist, the theism is, that's the belief in a God, higher power. Now, an atheist, what's an atheist?
Simply put,
Besides somebody who's going to hell, clearly, but what's an atheist?
I have a trip booked. Besides that, it's essentially someone putting forward a claim, the claim of theism, the theism claiming that there is a God. And an atheist is just essentially anti that. Okay, you have a claim of God, then prove it. And what atheists essentially ask for is proof of this claim. It's almost like a scientist saying, I have a hypothesis that there's an A plus B equals C, then we will just say, okay, prove it. And once it can be proved, then it will be accepted. So far, religion has not been able to prove to atheists, so therefore atheists exist because we haven't gotten that proof, that the burden of proof that the Christians bear.
Well, you say Christians here, but Christians are not the only persons to believe in a higher power.
True.
So you have.
No, well, I say Christians because they are I would say the lowest hanging fruit. I mean, it's religion on the broadest aspect. Anytime you bring faith into it, which faith is a great component of religion, then we kind of become, Christianity, just as I say, the lowest hanging fruit. Of course, I mean to say all religions, but let's just use Christian as the easiest way to kind of bring everybody together. Because it all comes down to faith, some sort of faith-based religion that is propagated through the masses.
All right. So you're saying, but based on the definition that you've given,
right?
Are you saying that atheists don't not believe? They just wait, or they're waiting to believe. They're just waiting on the evidence. Is that fair to say?
I would say that's accurate, but that's also kind of delve into agnosticism, if I have the term correct, where is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God. So we kind of have a stalemate.
Right.
So it really depends. There could be an agnostic atheist. You could be a complete atheist. It is like a spectrum. You don't necessarily. It all depends on how much will you accept. What essentially is you will accept as your level of evidence. Because
so it's based on your feelings and thoughts.
I wouldn't say your feelings. It's what can be presented to you.
Because then you start to sound maybe a trans atheist.
Possibly. I have an idea with that. I'd like to share with you. But for me, it's not necessarily what feelings and thoughts is. What can be proven?
All right.
What is testable and what is repeatable? Because we can't say, okay, a miracle is not testable. A miracle is not repeatable. A miracle is a one-off occurrence that happens, some great miraculous thing, and we have no way of, one, proving that it actually happened, two, proving that it can be repeated. Okay, change this water into wine again. Let's see, come on. So there has to be some sort of truth, actual truth, provable truth to me asking you to prove your claim. It can't just be because I feel that way, which is usually the answer of, okay, you believe God exists, how do you prove it?
All right. My next question would be, were you were once a believer? Would you say that you were once?
Anglican.
So you were once a staunch Anglican?
Now, it's very hard to say staunch because I'm not sure if it was. Looking back, it seemed like I saw the idiosyncrasies in religion. Like earlier, I didn't like it. It didn't make sense. It just did not come together for me.
Right.
I mean, I kept waiting to have this interaction with people saying, God talked to me, or God called me, or God told me, and I kept waiting to kind of have this moment and kind of never came.
Maybe your phone battery died.
Sorry? Yeah. Maybe my phone battery died. Maybe I was, as people like to say, I wasn't open enough.
Right.
But it becomes a whole lot of wishful thinking, to me at least, to be on that side of things. You realize that the position that you take with faith is a very weak position. It's always like hope. It's like You can hope for things to happen that doesn't actually being able to happen. And like I always say, faith, well, I don't always say, but faith is not a pathway to truth. I can have faith in anything. There's nothing that faith could preclude me from. There's nothing that faith could stop me from believing. I could believe tomorrow I'm going to get $1 million in the mail.
The thing is, I think though, the way human mind works is that we generally base faith around things that we hold as evidence.
But faith
So a person would hold faith in a higher power because they would believe, personally, they would have had an experience, and they believe that this faith will bear fruit. That is based around a belief, a strong belief that they feel has been verified previously or in the past.
But is faith a pathway to truth? Is there any truth at the end of faith?
It depends. It depends on if we're having a conversation about personal truth. And if we make truth something that can be personalized, then as opposed to this one specific objective thing, and someone can have a personalized truth, then yes.
If you've kind of walked into what I kind of alluded to earlier, let me give you this premise. Faith, for all intents and purposes, is evidence based on whatever experience you have that God exists or that something, a greater higher power.
Right.
Agreed?
Yes.
So then, by that same logic, I was explaining to somebody that if a trans man, another controversial topic, or a trans woman says, or let's say a trans woman says, I am a woman, you should not have a problem with that, or you should not have a pushback to that because you believe faith essentially becomes evidence or becomes is quantifiable as a belief and a truth. So then his truth or her truth is whatever they say becomes the real thing, which again
for them,
is shaky ground. So therefore, if you as a believer cannot get your head around, I don't believe, and some people do, some people don't, but some people say, I don't believe that trans women are women. That's fair and fine wherever you fall on the answer sheet. Cool. But I think everybody should need to realize how close the arguments are in terms of if you believe your faith is some building block of evidence that leads you to one thing, that same faith should be used and could be used by someone else as their faith and their evidence to another. And you should be willing to accept it even though you may not agree with it.
Okay.
Would you agree or would you disagree? Let me know if I'm off here.
No. I mean, I follow the logic. I follow the statement, and that's why I would have said that it's personalized. And if truth is, if you have personal truths, right, as opposed to one universal truth, if you have personalized truth, then that can be very true. You can have persons whose feelings based on what they deem to be evidence, their experienced evidence, can have a truthful belief. This is my belief. Now, where I want to take it is a step further. What is the detriment in belief in a higher power versus the lack of belief? Because if I believe, for example, at the end, I'm going to see the Creator's face and so on, and I have lived this life, or the viewers at home have lived this life in accordance with that, right? What is the risk and the harm in living by a set of guided principles, morals, and values that you attribute to a higher power, as opposed to the risk of non-believing at all? If we are also to believe that the end result of not believing could be some sort of eternal torment or disconnection and so on,
I would say,
why risk it?
That is, I would say, Pascal's wager, that it's safer to believe and not have to worry about swimming in the fires of hell, as opposed to you disbelieve and then you're going to hell anyway. It's better to do that and go to heaven than not and go to hell. But Pascal's wager is kind of flawed. Living according to a religion, I personally believe, no big thing. If you need a pathway, some sort of guiding light, something that essentially makes you a better person, great. But that can be very, very personal. And for me, I don't think you need a God to get you on that path. I think that, for me, I understand that my failures are my failures, my successes, I prepare enough to essentially get to where I'm going. Because without that quote-unquote God, I need to have a certain amount of willpower and a certain amount of strength in order to be able to say that this is it. This is me. I'm responsible. I need to do as much as I could do in the time that I have here, because there's no, for me, afterlife, there's no great big reward I'm working to. Everything I'm working to is here. So I wouldn't say there's a detriment to believing. It's great for most people, but for me, my issue is some of the rules and the stipulations and the tenets of religion go against just people being people. The golden rule, the golden rule, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. That to me is not something that just comes out of the Bible. That's something that how societies work. It's like gears to me. If your house is burning down and I wet your house, at some point in time you may do something for me. That is just how societies work. If I burn your house down, then more than likely you might seek revenge and burn my house down.
Right.
Just continues the cycle. So that doesn't necessarily come from religion. That just comes from life. In order for me to...
Well, what do you think? But doesn't religion come from life?
I would say so, yeah. Over all the time we've had, we've always tried to make... Sorry, I don't want to be too controversial, but I'll say it. We've always made things up to explain the things we don't know.
Right.
If I see the sun rising, I'm going to say, well, the sun is a god, it comes, it gives us light, it gives us the ability to see the animals that are going to come and attack us so we can attack them first, all these things. The moon comes, it gives us a little light, but you know what? It makes the plants grow, so the moon is another god. We have pulled gods from everything, from as simple as or heart or brains and I mean, in the Egyptian religion there was a great obsession with semen. They have their whole thing with how the world started and who did what. But all religions, man has always needed something that they would think is greater than them to quote-unquote guide them. But my thing is, like you alluded to earlier, that doesn't mean it's true. If you're looking for a truth, we're looking for a universal truth, something that will be true time and time again. Right. Not just truths or personal truths, as you said, that could be found in different communities, like the Norse god or the Egyptian god or the Zoroastrians or Muslims, all different religions, all the religious sects. It kind of doesn't, I more look for something that will give me a universal truth than a personal truth that is only applicable to me.
Okay, and so do you not feel, this is me just asking you now personally, I'm supposing now this is would be your truth, do you not feel that, I could well imagine that persons who would see everything that has been created here, everything on the planet, even us and how, whether you believe in evolution or you're a Garden of Eden type.
Just want to say that I don't think a belief in evolution is something. I mean, evolution is a thing. It's not like you don't need to believe in it for it to be true.
No, but we have persons who don't believe in evolution.
Sure, you have people who don't believe the sky is blue, but that doesn't mean it's not.
Actually, the sky is not really blue.
Okay, it's because of the light that comes through and filters. Yes, I know.
Okay, but so you have. I'm trying to lay a foundation for.
Sure, I'll let you lay a foundation.
Thank you. So we have persons who believe in evolution. You have evolutionists.
Yes.
And you have persons who believe in Adam.
I don't like the word believe, but I'll let you go with it.
The Adam and Eve Garden of Eden belief.
Sure.
Right? Whichever side you fall on, at some point there was a period of creation.
Yes.
Whether you believe that creation was a single-cell organism that then evolved into what we have now, or you believe that the creation story of Adam and Eve and God blowing life into man and so on and that sort of thing. But there's a creation story, whichever side you fall on.
Sure.
Now, that creation story, how do we account for, well, which may be a question we can't answer, for who or whatever created us, and then my real question would be, who or whatever created us, isn't that the creator? Isn't that a higher power?
Now, a caveat to me being atheist or agnostic or whichever side you think I fall on, is that I have to give credence to the creation or the creator story, in that the Big Bang and God is literally considered the same thing, because it's both something from nothing. We have either a ball of energy or something that exploded and created the universe, or we have this uncaused cause that caused the Earth or the universe to become what it is.
Right.
Cool, whichever way you think.
Whichever side you fall on the other. Right.
So for me, I see how one, because I like to be fair in my arguments. I see how one can be equated to the other. Cool. But where I start to kind of deviate is that let's play devil's advocate. Let's play devil's advocate and say, there is a God. There's a creator. He created everything we see here. Now tell me, how do you speak for him? Tell me, how do you know what he wants? How do you know his wishes? How do you know that he cares about you? All these are things that we put on God. We put on God that he cares about us, that he's looking out for us. He's looking out for me, especially me right here in this studio, making sure that everything goes good, that this doesn't fall on my head. Right. He's essentially, we put all these characteristics on something that, quote unquote, we cannot understand. We somehow give this God life and meaning and essentially action and causality, and we say, well, just like all the other religions that have come and lived and died, we give them power, we give them, let's say, the Norse God, who flying around in a Marvel movie right now? Thor.
Right.
With any amount of time, Thor went from being a god of the Norse people to now being a character in a movie. So, you disagree?
No. I just have a sneaky suspicion I know where your argument going, but all right, go on.
Well,
please don't cancel it. Please don't cancel it. But go on.
So, no, okay. Let me bring it back from there then. If you finish or you
Finish.
Just like, in fact, let me answer the first point first. Where I disagree or have my questions is that why do we now, something that's all powerful or all knowing, decided to create something because it needed for a friend, something to praise it, to send the praises and prayers into heaven? That sounds awfully human, too human to me to be believable. It's like saying you care about the ant you just stepped on. When you get to a certain, I would think, intelligence, you begin to, I would think, care less about what others think about you. And I think God, the God that we postulate, cares too much about what we think about him.
But isn't that you doing the same thing? You're accusing believers. The same thing you're accusing believers of. It's kind of what you're doing now, because you're kind of making an argument where you are assuming on behalf of God or gods or whoever the creator, right? For the sake of the conversation, you're assuming the creator mindset and
Okay.
based on level of functioning and so on, whether they would care or not care.
So isn't that fair? If you could get to one side of the equation, same thing I was saying about faith. If you could get all this way down this path with the same faith, I could get all the way down here. And you can't really say that I'm wrong because we're both using the same linchpin.
Well,
but to finish my point, which I think is very important, just like how we have our Norse gods and our Egyptian gods and our, what is it, Moon Knight was in later show with the Egyptian god Osiris, I think it was. I can't remember the name of the one. But with time, everything kind of falters.
Khonshu.
King Ozymandias, you know the poem?
No.
Look upon my mighty works and despair.
Oh, yes.
You know, a guy came upon two trunks or legs in the sand of a statue that was really big and had a plaque on it that said, look upon me mighty works and despair. can't remember the whole poem, but it was essentially saying that King Ozymandias was a great king, he built great works, but when the guy finally reached there after all the time passed, he just see 2 broken legs of a statue in the sand. So the impermanence of things. So for me, again, I'm bringing everything close. I don't want to say that this is how it is, but Jesus could be flying on a movie any soon. He could be wielding a slipper at somebody in space in a movie. You saw it coming because you know. But because with enough time, anything could falter. There's been kingdoms built. We were trying to recreate how the pyramids were built. And we don't know because there are certain things that are lost to time. How many religions have come and gone before Christianity that have been lost to time? So time is the great equalizer. We won't be here to see it happen. But if aliens come tomorrow, a lot of people might lose their religion. If the rapture doesn't happen tomorrow, some people might lose their religion because you know the preachers will say the rapture is happening on the September the 23rd. So if that doesn't happen, some people might be like, well, I don't know. So it's too, what's the word I'm looking for? There are too many idiosyncrasies and there are too many plot holes in this whole story for me.
Well, there are a couple of things. One, I can literally hear my mother's voice in my head saying, no man knoweth when that time comes.
Right.
Right.
But yet a lot of preachers have come up with a date of the end times, of the rapture, of Jesus coming back. The second coming has been happening since the first.
Well, I can't speak for other preachers and religions and so on, and I won't even pretend nor try to do that. Right? The conversation we're having is more so for me on the belief in a higher power or not, and what that means, or lack thereof, and what that means. All right. So I can't speak to other religions and their beliefs. What I would really like to know though, and I'm assuming perhaps folks at home as well, because a lot of the argument you're saying, even though some of it may sound incendiary, I imagine to some folks.
I apologize if I lit the fire.
Who probably don't want to hear about Jesus being a superhero and so on in the next Marvel movie.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
I'm not.
I want to bring it back to how does not believing in that influence your day-to-day functioning? Because I do understand that having heard you say some of these things, someone at home may be thinking maybe then if you're not this, then you're that. So if you are not a believer in God, whichever God that is, but you're not a believer in God, then you must be associated with the other side. And so perhaps maybe have an altar at home with
candles, red candles lit.
With the head of a goat or something, or something, you know.
That to me is like the lowest hanging fruit for any person who, I guess, holds fast to their religion. That any opposition to it must be from the other side. So you will hear people say, oh, he's the devil, or the devil made him do it, or the devil possessed me. Which to me is almost like a cop-out. That you're not seeking to understand somebody's point or somebody's point of view. You're just seeking to use the same window you're looking out of to try to class everybody, which is sometimes fair, but to me, you have to be able to step away or take a step back and look at things, look at the bigger picture. So people would always say, Satanists are the devil, but have they ever looked at the tenets of Satanism? The actual look at what they believe. And I'm sure, I think there's 7 or 10 of them. If you go through to them, you would find yourself, I'm sure, agreeing with, okay, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense. Maybe this is not exactly what I thought it was. Now, when we talk about Satan, then we have to talk about, does Satan exist? Does Satan make sense? Why would Satan work I always question, like, why would Satan work for God? I don't understand. It never made sense to me. So,
what do you mean why work for God?
As I understand it,
right.
Satan was an angel cast out of heaven for believing himself for having the hubris to question God. Right. Cool.
He led an insurrection, basically.
He led an insurrection. He had some people with him. Hey, let's go try to take over this. God said, nah, you go figure it out on earth, I guess, or in hell. I'll give you a kingdom to rule over, I guess, hell. Now, whenever anybody doesn't do what I ask them to do, you know what your job to do is? To torture them forever. But your job also is to convince them to do the wrong thing so you could torture them forever, which doesn't make sense to me. Is that if I'm the devil, if I'm Lucifer, Beelzebub, the king of hell, why would I try to get you to do the wrong thing, and then I'm successful, I get you to rebel against God, and then I would torture you for that? That doesn't make sense to me. It's like, yes, I won, but you still have to do what God asked me to do and torture you. I don't get that. I think, well, I was watching a video with even a preacher. Hell is a kind of after the fact thing. It's not necessarily in the Bible. It's an after the fact thing where we say, okay, people must be punished for whatever they do. So there must be a place where God sends everybody to be punished who didn't do his will. And it becomes, and who must be the thing of that? If you say the guy who rebelled, he must be the one who's doing the torturing. But to me, if you are thrown out of your dad's house, are you going to do what he asked you to do? That's the question.
But then again, we're going right back to the conversation we had previously, where we are signing very humanistic.
Isn't it fair, though?
Very humanistic traits.
My thing, if it can be done. When we talked about this interview, I said, you know what, I'm not going to go and prepare and look for all the different points. I'm going to try to go in there with the same logic that believers go into most things with. So if we're using the same linchpin, sorry. So if I could say on this side of things, this, and this, then on this side, there must be the other side. So if you can believe that Satan works at the behest of God to torture the people that didn't make it into heaven, my question is why? Why can't it be that?
No, this is also only for one cross section of religious beliefs, because in some religious sects or some religious religions don't necessarily believe in a hell.
Absolutely.
Right? And even if they do believe in a afterlife, a torturous afterlife, you know, some religions talk about roaming the earth and not being called up to heaven and so on, or going to meet your creator or whatever afterwards. So, and I don't want us to dwell and be too specific on one specific religious belief, and more so just in terms of what does it mean not to believe? If does it now make you a supporter of?
Well, no. Maybe I glossed too much on the question, but no, it does not make me a supporter of the devil. It doesn't mean that I'm a terrible person. It doesn't change the person that I am. It just means that I don't rely or have as a crutch the aspects of religion. I more look to self and what I can do that will put me in a better position as best as possible. And understanding that what other people do may not be out of malice or anything like that, they are essentially on the same path trying to survive. So if we are all on the same path trying to survive, sometimes we will get along, sometimes we won't, but my failures are mine, my successes are mine. If I didn't study for the test, I could pray to God all how, I'm not going to pass. But if I did study for the test, then sure, I could say thank God, but I also put in a great amount of work to pass that test. So for me, I just, as I said, don't have that to fall back on, that crutch to fall back on of belief. But it doesn't change my values as a person. It doesn't make me...
No, we can argue psychologically, from a psychological professional standpoint as a therapist. Belief in a higher power has a lot of value. Psychologically speaking, right? It removes the feeling of being lost or alone, or it helps interpret a world where you may feel as though you have little or no control over.
Would you also say
so that religion really does play an important role, or belief in a higher power, rather.
What about responsibility, though? Doesn't religion also kind of absolve you of responsibility for certain things? In that it's easier to say, well, the devil made me do it, or God didn't want this to happen, or God works in mysterious ways when stuff happens that we don't like, but when stuff happens that we do like, well, that was God. It kind of absolves responsibility of people on over it just like makes it seem like What are you responsible for? I cheated on my wife, you know, the devil made me do it, you know, I promised I wouldn't do it again. I went to church and, you know, I got saved.
I'm not 100% sure that that's how it's supposed to work.
No, but I mean,
it's supposed to work.
But you understand what I'm saying? It absolves people of, so you go in a church, you confess, all of a sudden all the weight of the world is off your shoulders, all the sins that you did are somehow forgiven, and that's in the past. I'm not buying it, I'm sorry. I'm just not buying it. I mean, if it works for you and it brings you to some sort of space where you can live in this world, great. I understand that. I understand that we all need, as I say, a mommy and daddy to say that this is good, this is what you'd be doing, and somebody to guide us along and hold our hands. Some need that. Some don't. But that doesn't make the people that don't the antithesis of what you might think is all good. So that doesn't make them evil. That doesn't make them, they're going out and rape and kill. That doesn't make them terrible people. It just means that they don't hold the same belief that you do. And countless times we don't hold the same beliefs as the person next to us in many other things. Religion, not only the same belief in religion, should not automatically cast that person as evil.
Well, in closing, because we're just out of time, but in closing, my last question would be this.
Sure.
How do you then, as someone who believes divergent to most of the rest of society, more or less, because we know almost everybody in society has some sort of persons at home, you know, have some sort of religious belief and belief in a higher power. Whatever that religion is, Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, whatever they release, but there's some level of belief. Even when we talk about Satanism, even though that's seen as negative, that's still a belief in some kind of higher power of something.
Actually, it's not even a belief. It's just it's more like a flying spaghetti monster kind of thing. If you really read the tenets of Satanism, it's like, we don't really believe in that, in Satan at all, religion.
But my question to you would be, how would you continue to exist, or persons like you, who hold that mind frame, how do you continue to exist in a society that holds highly the value of believing in a higher power, the belief in a higher power? How do you family have to deal with? Is there any backlash that your family has to deal with? Is there any backlash you have to deal with as a professional who shares a very different belief from the majority of the society? And a society that may quickly kind of shun those who are very different in belief or disregard the belief in a higher power.
Honestly, I think as an atheist or as somebody who doesn't hold the same beliefs as others, you kind of have to be open to that, one, there are no sacred cows. If somebody can make as much fun of you and your stance as you can make fun of theirs. Well, not necessarily make fun, but essentially critique. There is no, what's the word I'm looking for? There's nothing to be scared about, there's nothing to be worried about. You're going to get the, well, I'm not sure if I should personalize it, but I haven't gotten any backlash for being an atheist. Nobody has come and tried to, and I'd let our group conversations kind of stay out of this. Nobody has come and tried to sprinkle holy water on me and try to hold me down and have a conversion or anything like that. I've faced no backlash, that I could literally say. I've talked to people, I've talked to countless people about religion. It's one of my favorite topics. I like to poke and prod and like to see how people think, because, as I say, it's curious. I'm still, I would say, trying to figure out exactly where this belief kind of stems from and how people kind of reconcile not having the particular evidence to do it, but having the faith to do it, and that whole faith kind of thing. Right. So for me, I won't say there's no backlash, there's no, even I'm a person, I've done work with gospel artists, I've done work with anybody, because my beliefs or my religious belief doesn't, or disbelief, doesn't dictate me as a person. I'm not going to not work with you because you are not. That is where I, again, take issue with religion, because I am not your particular cup of tea, then you can't work with me. Ignoring all the person that I am. Because if you can't look past the religion and to see how a person is, then maybe that's your fault. Because I was talking with my wife and she was telling me that even though I'm an atheist, she thinks I'm better than some of the Christians she knows. And again, not to harp on the Christians.
I feel like you're beating up. I feel like you're beating up on the Christians.
But that's her religion. She's a Christian.
Right.
So because we've been together for God knows how long. Anyway, so it becomes, as I would say, the same grace that you would apply to, you'd want to apply to you as a believer. You don't want to be persecuted for your beliefs. You don't want to be essentially maligned or put to the side because you have this whatever belief.
It's the same.
It's the same way. As again, we have a linchpin. Either side of it should work.
And Andrea, I wanna stop you there because we out of time, and I would like to leave on those words because I think they are positive words. So this, as you said, the same grace that's extended to somebody who's a believer. Mm-hmm. All you're asking for is the same grace to be extended to you as somebody who does not believe.
Right.
And I'd take it even one step further and say, from having this conversation with you, it sounds more so like you are waiting to believe.
I would agree.
that you are waiting to believe.
I have these conversations and I talk with people. You see that, not because I say I'm taking the stance that, no, I don't believe. For now, I haven't been given enough evidence to believe. But I want it. I would like to experience what people, I see people in church experience, this rapture, this feeling with God that they have with the, because it looks nice. It looks nice. It looks pretty cool. But having that experience that is like, waiting for it. I am, because people like to tell me, oh, you're not open to it. I'm open, I would consider, to an experience. I would like to have a verifiable experience. Some miracle happens, something. I would love that. As you say, I'm open to it. I am waiting for it, but if I don't get it, I'm not just going to go lock, stock, and barrel with, well, there must be a God. I'm sorry.
So in closing, any audience out there, anybody out in the audience looking at us today, any pastors, any conversion specialists, and so on?
No. Conversion specialist. Don't beat me over the head with it.
Mr. Stewart is waiting for an experience of conversion. He's welcoming it. So please, feel free to reach out and convert this young man, right? But for those of you who stay tuned, thanks for watching us right here on WESN, our family. Until next week, please go on. Same time, same place, stay psyched.